recommend to the Board of Commissioners
Oh, I don't know.
approval. Oh, I don't have my mic on. The question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the audit engagement agreement with Walker Fluke and Sheldon PC to perform the 2019 Berry County Road Commission annual audit.
Support.
Second?
Support by Gibson, second by Smelker. The floor is yours.
Sure, this is a bit of a perfunctory or ministerial, if you may, task, the Road Commission, and I should acknowledge that Brad Lamberg's here. If there are any difficult questions, you can certainly ask him, but and Brad, you're welcome to come up if you want. It's up to you. But this is an annual...
It's really not a hot seat.
An annual item. The Road Commission is required by law to perform an audit annually as part of the public law, which is MCL 224.27, requires that the Road Commission get approval from the County Board of Commissioners, and the Road Commission is requesting approval to enter into an agreement with Walker, Fluke, and Sheldon in the not-to-exceed amount of $9,100 to complete the 2019 annual audit.
Thank you, sir. Any questions?
Yeah, I guess so. This is something that the county requests, or is this a state mandate, or?
The state of Michigan requires that public law requires that the two things. One, the County Road Commission perform an audit, but then the engagement with the auditor must be confirmed by the County Board of Commissioners.
And
I'm still, did I not help me?
But is this the only audit the road commission does in the year?
It's their annual financial audit, just like the county does.
Okay.
I can't answer. They might have to do other programmatic audits, if you may, but this is their annual financial audit.
Michael is correct. We do get a variety of audits on MDOT projects and on individual grant-funded stuff, but this is the one major financial audit you think of any institution getting annually, private or public.
They are, and then we take and fold that into the county's audit.
So really, it's part of our audit also.
They are, but our audit refers to theirs because they conduct their own audit. It's what's called a component unit.
So the money does come out of their budget then?
That's
Yes.
correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Basically a formality to get this approval over the years, traditionally has been. And we did also search for proposal, Dave, helping you guys out, Dahan, incidentally, last year or the year before, when you guys combined all your audits, we did seek a price from your person to try to see if it would be worthy of us combining and making it really together type thing. I lost for a word there, but we didn't get a price at that time from them. They had their hands full, so. And we're kind of used to Walker and Fluke, and they do a good job for us, so.
Any other questions? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the audit engagement agreement with Walker, Fluke, and Sheldon, PC, to perform the 2019 Berry County Road Commission annual audit. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The item is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 19-22, a resolution renewing the agreement with Berry County United Way for Veteran Affairs Services.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Gibson, second by Smelker. Michael?
Yes, thank you. I have with me Patrick Janssens. I think everyone knows Patrick. He is the lead on our Veterans Affairs program through United Way, and very fortunate to have him at the helm, if you may. Patrick has prepared, and I've reviewed the proposed agreement for Veterans Affairs Services. This will be a 3-year agreement. It's following on the heels of an expiring 3-year agreement, which will take us 2022, 2021, and 22. I had to get it, boy, it starts to get. I've provided you with a black-lined copy. When we get to the full board meeting, if this one's acceptable, we'll have a clean version, but you should have a black-lined copy. All changes have been highlighted. The changes, additions are just highlighted. The deletions have been highlighted and have a strike through, a line stricken through them. So I would be happy to address any questions you have or refer them to Patrick.
You know how many hours a week they're available?
40 plus. 7 days a week.
Once you get his cell phone, you're in.
Yeah.
We find that many of the younger veterans prefer to digitally communicate via email, so I frequently receive emails weeknights, weekends, and respond accordingly.
One of the things that's been a benefit in this agreement is that, and Patrick can either correct me or attest to this, is that the clientele that the veterans, if you may, when they come in, one of the benefits to it being with United Way is that if a vet comes in and there isn't something specifically available through Veterans Affairs, United Way has access to numerous other programs that they can assist with. And so, as Patrick says, the agreement at $32,000 a year certainly isn't designed based on 40 hours a week, but because of the common mission of both of them, Patrick will assist a veteran regardless when they come in. There aren't just a set of office hours. We're only open 4 hours a day, and if you don't come at that point. So there's a lot of benefit that's gained and momentum that's gained by having it in that same suite of offices.
Yeah, and we have expanded staff. There's 6 of us now at the United Way, and all 5 of them are trained to assist a veteran whether I'm there or not. So if I'm out for a meeting or what have you, they can certainly assist in that capacity as well.
Yes.
How were the salary increases calculated? Is it a certain percent?
Yes, there was a percentage base.
So the contract amount, if that's what you're asking, is roughly 3% each year.
Okay, thank you.
And that's what you're asking?
Yes,
is
that's what I'm
not the
asking.
salaries, because the salaries that would then be set by United Way.
I'm sorry, I should have said.
That's okay.
I
I just want to
understood.
make sure I'm
Understood
answering the
what you
right
meant.
question.
Okay,
If I may, one of the biggest things that we've focused on over the last few years, and it's in this contract as well, is clarifying veteran status. There's a lot of ambiguity in the word, and even veterans don't even understand whether or not they're veterans, and quite honestly, that's sad. So we've really worked hard to clarify, demystify, what have you, what the term veteran means. And in Berry County, anybody that served their country, wartime or otherwise, honorably discharged is a veteran. And we see some of that shifting at the federal level too. Even as recent as of October, the American Legion actually has done away with some of their wartime service eligibility, and they're only recognizing World War I and World War II to present. Anybody that's served since 1941 is a veteran, no matter whether they were deployed, active duty, wartime. And that's one of the biggest things that I want to make sure that you guys understand with this contract. I spoke with Michael a little bit. some services are wartime eligible dependent. I can't change that, that's law. But we have other services that can assist veterans that are not necessarily wartime. And we have the Mission United program, which we created a couple years ago, that encompasses all veterans, no matter when they served. And we have very generous donations from some of our community employers that have provided funding to support that, and are continuing to support the United Way and the Mission United program.
Any other questions for Patrick?
Just a comment, I think on your United Way, you can earmark what you want to, where you want to have it go to also, so.
Absolutely, yeah. If you do our pledge or designations, you can always designate that to Veterans Affairs. We do have a fund set aside through United Way as well that stays there for specifically Berry County veterans. Whether they qualify for Soldiers and Sailors or Trust Fund or not, they can still be assisted through the Mission United funding.
Anything else for Patrick? Thank you for your dedication to this segment of our society. We hear a lot about orphans and children and widows, and we sometimes forget about our vets that are just as much special needs as some of our kids and our seniors. So, and they're the ones that don't ask for help, typically. So thanks for keeping them on a more even keel.
Yeah, they usually wait till the very end to ask for help when they're drowning or circling the drain, so to speak. That's when they need the help the most. Creates a lot of additional challenges, but we're there to help them, and we haven't forgotten about them.
Thank you, sir. There be no further discussion. The question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Approval, or Board of Commissioners, approval of the attached letter of support for the, that's the wrong one. The question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 19-22, a resolution renewing agreement with the Berry County United Way for Veterans Affairs Services. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The item is approved.
Thank you.
So, the next question before the committee is Vice
There she
Chair
can't
Connor.
vote, right?
Huh?
She goes out there, she can't vote, right?
I don't know. This does make it so that we can have, we don't have a
We
tie
can grill
today.
Vivian.
So, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached letter of support for the first official public shooting range for the Berry State Game Area as put forward in the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund application TF 19-0205 by the Michigan Department of Natural Resources and authorize Vice Chairwoman Vivian Connor to sign it.
Support. Second.
Motion by Parker, second by Jackson. I'm assuming that's what you want to do, Mr. Parker?
What's that?
I'm assuming you want to make the motion?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, yeah, that's right, I gotta say, I move that, yes.
The floor is yours, Commissioner Connor.
How does it keep going down? Anyways, so a little history. There is a shooting area out on Yankee Springs Road. It's state land. Years ago, it was a skeet shooting range that the Moose took care of, gated. They did all the maintenance and stuff. And then they found land and moved their range, and it's state land. So the state just continued to let people use it. It's unmanned, it's unsupervised. There's a new CO, he's kind of cracking down a little bit on it. In the meantime, in Yankee Springs, there are 3 subdivisions that are in actually Dan's district that were built behind it or off to the side. They're on 37 just before you get to Shaw Lake Road. Anyways, people get antsy and don't want to wait. It's not a very big area. So they think, well, I'm just going to run 2 or 3 shells through here just to shoot, sight in my gun. And they make little area off to the side. Well, there are houses over there and they have bullet holes in them. And this has been going on, well, at least 19 years, because it was going on when I worked for the DNR. We would get calls and they tried to deal with it. They put up signage. People shot the signs. It said, don't shoot in this area, don't shoot in this direction, houses. And then the sign would be all shot up. The other thing is there are problems with night shooting now with all the night shooting goggles, and one of their favorite things is blowing up tannerite, which when you have houses around, I mean, it's very troublesome. Yankee Springs has a cleanup of the rec area, and the Yankee Springs Township has a cleanup of the rec area and also the shooting range. And we have taken yards and yards of waste out of there. TVs that have been blown up, appliances, you would not believe it, furniture. So this new range, because of all the problems, is on M179. If you've been out that way, you'll see that the DNR has cleared, I don't even know how many acres that is, and I didn't think to ask Randy. But they did it themselves. They cleared the land, they sold the timber, they sold firewood, and the money they received from those two projects paid for the rental of the machinery they needed to clear that land. So they're still at zero for what they've spent on this shooting range. This first picture, the little minute, so this would be the road down here. These red are shooting stations, and they've got 25, 50, 100, and 150. The green is a berm that will be all the way around the shooting area. To the left, they will be a place that people can come, and if they have like their own hand caster for skeet, they can shoot in this area, and they will be additional berms on the perimeter of the shooting range. It will have hours, and at this time it's going to remain unmanned. But there are gates. They're looking at how they can perhaps set them up electronically so that they would open at 9 and close at either sunset or 7:30. The current road or the entrance into that is going to be moved. It's going to be further east because there is a curve right there. They will have they will have bench, I can't even read my own writing, concrete rests in that red area, so that you have an actual shooting space and you can sit there. And they will have a roof over that area so that it will help keep the sound down. The closest house is a little over a mile. When I left a meeting last night, I set my odometer when I got there, and it was 1.3 miles to the corner of Yankee Springs Road and M179, and that's where there's a house. And where the range actually sits, where you're going to shoot, it's just acres and miles of just state game land. So they are going before the trust fund, the Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund, and that is on December 11th. And are asking for this letter. Yankee Springs has already signed that letter and will be submitting it to Randy to take to the meeting. And because of all the problems, and that I know, this would be greatly appreciated if we would do this. It's open to the public. You don't need a pass. You don't need to be a member of anything. It's just open for people to go out there, and we have an increase in gun owners. Dar was saying last night at the meeting I was at about how many more guns have been sold since we've had shooting incidents. You know, he said every time there's a mass shooting incident, people go out and buy more guns, because they're concerned. So a lot of people go out there. It's a family thing. They take their kids, they practice. So I would appreciate it if the board would consider and sign the letter of support to help them at their trust fund meeting.
Commissioner Smoker?
You say there's woods all the way around this? Is that state game area woods? All
Yes,
around?
yep.
Okay. So there shouldn't be any building in there?
Nope.
What about across the road? Is that state game area also? That's all I got.
Commissioner Gibson?
No, I'm good.
Parker?
The road, you said it's at the bottom of where the 150 yard,
Right, yeah, this would be, the road and parking would be out here, and then they would shoot in this direction. You know where,
oh, okay, I'm looking at it this way then.
yeah.
Oh, all right,
I know I know what it is, but,
okay,
yeah.
that
this
makes
would be-
more sense.
And
Okay, thank you.
179 would be down here.
Thought we'd be shooting towards the road.
No, no.
Does the DNR need to hold a public hearing on this before they implement this, or is this nothing that requires public input or approval on?
I didn't ask Randy that. I can find that out, but I don't think so.
Okay. And with the other range or makeshift ranges in the area, are they gonna then close those down, abandon them? What's the plan to get those ranges off the homeowners?
Right now, the way the rules for the state game areas are, you can go anywhere on state game land and target practice or shoot in or sight in guns or that. You can go anywhere on state game land and do that. If this is a success, what they would like to do is perhaps maybe even change that state game land rule and maybe take that out. But that's down the road.
How many shooting stations will be in this range? It didn't say in there.
I'm sorry, and I don't know that either. No, he just talked about the different depths, you know, the different distances, but
Okay.
he didn't
And
say
I
how
agree
many.
with people going in there at night and wanting to blow up stuff with tannerite and that type of shooting. Is that sheriff's patrol, or is that strictly conservation officer patrolling those
The
facilities?
conservation officers do it. I don't know if road patrol, yes, Star's shaking his head, yes,
Okay.
goes back there. Especially when homeowners, I mean, I've actually seen the holes in these people's houses where stray bullets because they're shooting in the wrong direction. And it's just been an ongoing problem over the years. And they're not all Berry County residents that use that range. They get a lot of people from outside of the county, up by Kent County, up in Kent County. Allegan has a shooting range, but we still get some of those people because there aren't very many places where you can go to do target practice.
Dan?
I just wanted to comment, I was at Yankee Springs meeting last Thursday, and I talked to some of the residents there that get shot at over there in their homes and that, and it isn't just that there's a bullet hole, but the noise. They really have noise almost 24 hours sometimes, and it's really frustrating for them, so they're pushing it, obviously.
On this deal of shooting the Tamarite, will they
Tannerite.
allow that in this shooting range?
No,
And will they, is it legal in the other part?
it's not legal to have tannerite on the game area,
Okay.
but they're doing it at like 2 and 3 in the morning.
That'll get your attention.
So living out in the rural areas, you kind of take some of this for granted because I have 2 or 3 areas on the farm where I can shoot safely and not in the direction of a neighbor. I also have a neighbor who has a kind of a gun range that is away from everybody, and we have some trap practice out there. But not everybody feels the need to belong to a gun club because of the cost. But everybody wants to take their kid out and help them sight their gun in before season
Yes.
or have the opportunity to do that, and you only maybe do it once or twice a year. I unfortunately spend a lot of time on the range.
The second picture
So-
that I,
But I think this is a whole lot safer for our community than the existing shooting area.
yes. The second picture is the Echo Point shooting range that's at the Allegan State Game Area. It's kind of completed. You can see the parking lot and then the berms around it. And that has been there, I don't know how long, It's before my time.
Is
so.
it a manned facility?
It's not manned. It's not manned. It is gated. It has hours of operation. So, and they periodically have a problem, but it is actually very nice. So, but this is just kind of an idea of what, goes into it. So, but that's Echo Point over in Allegan County, in the game area. So they, like I said, they have to go before the trust fund on the 11th. So I'd like to get it to him so that they can get them all organized and have them so that when they go to their meeting to get approved for this range, I have a letter of support.
Is there any other questions for Commissioner Connor? So the last part of this is to authorize the vice chair to sign it. And I would be more than honored to let her sign it, given her history with the DNR and her years of service there. I think that it is one of those duties that I would love to delegate to her. And so I have no qualms with giving her that authority. Any other questions?
Thank you.
The question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached letter of support for the first official public shooting range for the Berry County State Game Area as put forward in the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund application TF 19-0205 by the Michigan Department of Natural Resources and authorize Vice Chairwoman Vivian Connor to sign it. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The item is approved.
Aren't you gonna vote?
Oh, yeah. Yay. I didn't think about it, but I was more worried about all you guys, so. I wanted to apologize for Randy. He could not be here today. He is on deer check duty out at the Berry State Game Area, and mornings are very busy from deer being brought in from the night before and continue through late morning as people will go there.
I drove past the processor last night about 7 o'clock and I couldn't believe the pile they had, so. All righty.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. The next item on our agenda is with Mr. Parker. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 19-23, a resolution creating the Parks and Recreation Commission in accordance with Public Act 261 of 1965.
So I make a motion to that effect.
Thank you. Their support?
Support.
Support by Smelker. Commissioner Parker, the floor is yours.
Well, it's been a fairly long process. We just found that it's going to be to our advantage to, from a grant standpoint, for Parks and Rec and also Charlton Park to kind of combine our efforts on different things, including fundraising and being able to apply for grants. It would not mean that the Parks and Rec Department would touch any of the millage available for Charlton Park. And we would expect that we would also help with fundraising towards Charlton Park too in the future. I guess feel it's something that's a win-win situation, or we wouldn't be trying to do this. We have Dan Patton, who's had many years of experience in the Parks and Rec area, and also with Ron Welton in Parks and Rec also. And we feel that there's some guidance there that we should take advantage of now. And so therefore this is a resolution to be able to create a better situation for people in our county to enjoy Parks and Rec and Charlton Park more. And Heather was also on the board for Charlton Park, and you may want to say some words too on this.
I think this is probably one of the first things that I saw when I got on the board, was a separation of powers, so be it, between Parks and Rec and Charlton Park. And I think for me, making less government is always a good thing. And I think that if we had a conjoined system again and we work out how that works, and we create some safeguards and stuff in that commission so that it's not the same old commission that we had that we dissolved, how was it, 2009? I think it would work better for our community. I think it would present a more united front when it comes to recreation being a destination for Berry County versus Parks and Rec against this, that, and the other, and everybody fighting. It would be nice to have us all under one umbrella and all work together and have more efficiencies. That process that we had with the Parks and Rec master plan last year was difficult to maneuver. We had two different committees that had to put in their 2 cents, and working with the consultant that we had wasn't always easy. The Parks and Rec had goals on their agenda. Charlton Park had goals on their agenda. We tried to get everything to fit, but then you had both committees that had to approve it before it could come to the Board of Commissioners for approval. If we had one entity dealing with Parks and Rec in the county, it would eliminate all of those extra steps that just kind of got written in when we dissolved the commission in the first place. I think this just makes more efficient work process for everything in regards to Parks and Rec. I know that Dan Hatton sent out an email yesterday encouraging people to come and be part of the discussion and listen to the presentation today. So I know that there's several people here from both Parks and Rec and Charlton Park Board, just to hear what we have to discuss.
Is this,
Any other questions?
is this the beginning of the creation of the commission? Is there still gonna be boards, separate boards operating? Is it gonna, obviously Charlton Park has their own board right now, so does Parks and Rec. So is there a plan for how those boards are gonna function, both
So-
together and separate?
Statutorily, if you have a Parks Commission, there is a prescribed membership, and there are 4 members that have to be on that board. One is the Drain Commissioner or his representative, the Parks or the Road Commissioner, Planning Department, and the County Commissioner. There is a 10-member board. There should be 6 members at large, and ideally, you would have people from both sides, Trails or Parks and Rec, Charlton Park, be on that board. In the past, it allows for up to 3 members of the Board of Commissioners, but I think that's pretty short-sighted in getting community involvement on this board. I think the more at-large members that you have versus 3 commissioners tied up in this meeting is more advantageous because you have more points of view involved. And it is the very first stages of making sure it works. We would have the creation of the bylaws, the appointments to the board. You can always have advisory committees. So if this commission decided that they wanted a museum advisory committee, they could very well create such and use that committee to help them make decisions on the collection. If they wanted a trails advisory committee, they could make one of those. But really, the commission is a statutory creation that you really might have to stick with. So, not that I want to say we'll dissolve all of the boards that we currently have, but we kind of will. It's just that commission would have the authority to create more.
Okay, so this is the start of the process?
This is.
Okay, so they don't have all the details worked out, this is the...
Nope.
We
okay.
feel, I think, that once that is established, that they can work out their own bylaws and figure out how they're gonna go from there. We feel we've got good expertise and experience involved there now, that they'll be able to come up with something good, which we have to approve anyways, so.
Isn't this gonna put more work on Dan Patton?
I don't know. I don't know, but he's excited about it.
Are we putting words into your mouth, Dan? Would you like to
I'd
address
like
the
to hear from
committee?
him.
I wouldn't mind hearing from either one, so.
Just pull a Brad and wave at you.
No, we end up getting him up here too.
I wondered about, because, we just gave Mr. Walton a raise, and so I wondered if.
That would still come out of Parks and Rec budget.
Right, I know, but will we need to, they've kind of changed that position into an administrator position.
Oh, we'll definitely need 2. We probably need 3.
Administrators?
Well, not necessarily administrators, but we need more help out there.
I don't know if you want Ron up there too.
Yeah, Ron, come up,
Yeah.
sir.
Oh, yeah, more the merrier.
Yeah.
Was there a specific question? Sorry.
So, this has been a long discussion between the two of us, and somewhere along the line, we got Dan and Ron involved, and it's been a moving target, to say the least, for the last 3 years. The floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, I don't know, when you look at it from a governance standpoint, right now, Berry County's position's pretty unique in terms of having 2 boards. It's actually the only system that I'm familiar with, and Ron can certainly speak to that as well, where there are 2. And it creates for myself, just in terms of interaction with particularly the state of Michigan, or other agencies, it does create some challenges as it relates to having 2 different boards. And I know in the past I've gotten, well, aren't you part of the county? Well, yeah. Well, I've already talked to someone that's with the county. Well, yeah. So inherently, just in terms of making it easier for us to do our jobs, it makes the most sense. Yeah, there was a Parks Commission in place for a number of years, I think from the 70s up until the 2000s. I don't know all the history on why it was separated out, but ultimately, in terms of moving us forward from a Parks and Recreation standpoint, it probably makes the most sense to try to join the 2 boards back together. That makeup of who's on the board, ultimately that's your decision outside of the 4. And I know there's been some discussion about, for instance, the Gadsden Steam Club. They have their involvement with Charlton Park's huge, right? And on top of that, we're their fiduciary. So I would imagine they would still be involved in some capacity. The trails, obviously there are a number of people who currently serve on the Parks and Rec Board who are very passionate about that particular activity. Again, I think you can find folks who bring their particular passion to the table, who can serve on the Parks and Recreation Commission and continue to thrive and move those things that inherently are important for Parks and Recreation forward in Berry County. No, I think someone said about the details. No, some of the details aren't worked out yet, particularly as it relates to like the bylaws and things, but ultimately we didn't want to get the cart before the horse and wanted to get the resolution done first. And it's good government.
But by the same token, we're not forging any new ground here either.
Right.
We're just the
Right.
majority of county park systems in the state run the way that we're proposing to move forward.
Is the city council on board with us then, or
Is who?
the the Hastings City? Have you talked?
City council?
Yeah.
I have no idea what the city council's on board or not on board with. That has no bearing on what the county's doing. So yeah, I can't really speak to that.
I was just thinking about the trails that run through here and everything, and
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing, Hoot, to be honest. Obviously, they've had a pretty aggressive trail development process in place for at least the last 10 years. I think that They are continuing to look to advance that even further out into the county, but ultimately, it's going to take a commitment from the county as well, so.
Go ahead.
So all three of the townships that I represent in my district have their own parks. Prairieville has a very extensive parks system department, and you're not getting involved in those, are you?
No, I mean, that's, Ron and I are both familiar with the operations of the outlying townships that have parks and recreation entities, boards or committees, whatever it may be. We're not looking to get involved with them. However, you do have the North Country Trail that runs through the western part of Berry County. That is an activity where potentially we would look to get involved with, because that's more of a county trail development type of thing than it is the individual townships. I think the involvement with the Parks Commission and the local units of government, again, would depend on the County Board of Commissioners and their commitment to continuing to fund the grant program as they have in the past several years. So I think we would still be involved, but only probably in the grant capacity.
But as far as park operations, the townships would continue just like they do now. There's nothing that would change.
I think that's Public Act 156 or something, 158, somewhere in there, where each government entity is allowed to have their own parks. I think schools are even involved in that act. It's the creation of the Parks Commission that is governed by this specific Public Act. And so there's rules on how this commission would have to work.
I think one of the things too is we kind of were at a dead end on some grants with DNR. Ron, could you speak to that at all?
Well, grants are an integral part in the development of public parks, and as time goes on, grants become more and more competitive. So, primary thing that grantors look at now is your ability to maintain the grant infrastructure through the life of the project, and that kind of depends on having some type of local infrastructure behind you. So if you're going for, so if you have a department with full-time staff and a budget that looks capable, that puts you much higher on the scale than having volunteer boards with no maintenance infrastructure behind you. You become much lower on the scale and really are at a disadvantage for those grants. It's always been an issue, but it's becoming much more of an issue that you can demonstrate that ability to maintain the grant as the grants become more and more competitive.
Got a question?
Got his hand up first.
Yes, sir.
I guess my concern would be over the millage on Charlton Park and its renewal and the loan they have the county. And what would happen if that millage didn't get renewed? Then the Parks Commission takes over that loan because there's one entity now and pays that loan back to the county. So we'd be giving you money to pay us back.
Well, that's why I think it's going to be important for Charlton Park also, because we're going to have more people, I believe, that will be interested in helping with money, with donations, with going out and getting things done that way. As far as who's going to pay the loan back, I would think that would, I can't tell you whether the millage, that's going to be open no matter what. If the millage is turned down completely, then you've got a situation where you've got to go back to square one, I think.
What I was getting at with that millage is when the parks were together before, Charlton Park couldn't get a millage. They separated, they got a millage. Now we're gonna put them back together. Is that going to be something that is a deterrent to the millage? I'm just asking these questions, I don't know the answers.
Well, I don't know the answer to that either.
And on the grants, to add the budget of the Charlton Park together and the Parks and Rec together to get your grant, but they're really in that Charlton Park budget, there's no monies left over. I don't know if you have a fund balance, do you?
No,
Dan?
this is, it's to show that you have a department, that you have a structure behind you that can maintain the infrastructure. It doesn't have anything to do with your operating budget so much as it has to do with that you're an established department and you have, the county has made the commitment to have, you know, a director and a staff and an infrastructure that's there that can take care of what you're trying to acquire.
Yeah, there's just not much of any budget there to maintain anything extra than what we have now, right?
Well, that's why the grants are important too.
The grant is to get you something, and then the county's still gonna have to pay for the maintenance of it, right?
You have to demonstrate that you can take care of it.
Yeah, so in terms of operational side, yes, it's still gonna take a commitment from the general fund to fund a portion of the overall Parks and Recreation operation. You are correct. However, in terms of it affecting the Charlton Park budget, there should be minimal to no effect on that, because ultimately the operational piece would be separated out into cost code centers. So time, materials, all those things would be done like they're already done at all the other county departments in terms of tracking expenses and tracking revenue. That, again, it's not reinventing the wheel, it's just using the applicable resources available in a way that is conducive to having one agency.
So I take it when the Charlton Park millage comes up, which, does anybody know when that is?
2024? Yeah.
When that comes up, do you surmise through the Parks Board it'll still be a Charlton Park millage, or will it be a Parks and Rec millage?
Well, that's what we're expecting. I never heard of anything other than that.
Charlton
Guess I didn't
Park
get that
millage.
answer.
I think it'll still be a Charlton Park Board millage, and we will still continue general fund contribution to the Parks and Rec side of it. Unless something should change in the next,
That would be
4
up to
years
that
that-
would be up to the board,
yeah.
to the new board.
Now, everything on that commission, and they have a lot of power, like condemnation and everything, but everything through that board has to come through us, right?
So yes, so in terms of overall operation, and how the boards currently interact with the County Board of Commissioners, there's not a substantial amount of change. So if the commission wants to apply for a grant, that still has to come before the Board of Commissioners for final approval, because you're the highest governing body, right? If we're purchasing property, still has to come before the Board of Commissioners, because again, you're the highest governing body. What it's saying, though, is that the Parks Commission can own property. So for instance, McEwen Bridge Park or the trail systems, the commission itself can actually own the property. But in order to purchase property or to get rid of property, that authority still has to come through the County Board of Commissioners. As an example, you today approved an audit for the County Road Commission. No different, right? The County Road Commission has their own authority to do the things that they do. The Parks and Rec Commission would have the authority to do the things that they do, with the ultimate responsibility coming back to the County Board of Commissioners.
And one thing that did concern me in this condemnation thing is the trails. And hopefully we don't try to condemn private property to get a trail through. And so far, you have not tried that. Thank you very much, Rick.
Well, I can say the way I remember it, in 2004, in November, when the Trail Association gave our property, we also agreed not to use condemnation to lengthen the trail. It's already been decided.
Thank you.
Maybe.
So when the commission is created, who's gonna own these Charlton Park and McEwen Bridge Park? Is the county still gonna own them, or are they gonna become the property of the commission?
It's still a body of the county, so it's
Right.
county ownership.
It'd still be county ownership.
And are you looking to build new parks? I mean, and acquire land and create more infrastructure?
I would hope that the future includes that. You know, there's no established timetable, but as demographics change and needs change, the demands that the public puts on you changes as well. And if looking at other counties as they grow as any indication, park systems generally expand to meet expanding populations.
Thank you.
I think probably what Ron said was the key, is that we're not breaking any new ground here.
Not
That
at
this
all.
is the way it's typically done in a normal county structure. My only concern is that I hope the commission looks at Charlton Park, the millage. I want to see continued transparency and accountability for the millage money in that budget. So if there's a finance committee or something that overlooks that, I'm sure Dan is in charge of that, but it'll be good to see some of that as well. But I'm comfortable with the fact that this is not, like I said, some groundbreaking new strategy or system that we're trying here, that there's proven track record of this type of a system working in almost every other county. So it'll be interesting to see how that commission rolls out and what they do, so.
What was groundbreaking was getting to where we are now. And then maybe that was something worth trying, but I think as we've evolved, it hasn't, there've been a lot of problems developed that didn't have to be there. I think we can more effectively address those issues as a unified body as opposed to splintered groups.
I just see a lot of, as they talked about, individual boards within the, the umbrella of the commission as far as addressing, looking at Charlton Park, trails, different things like that. So it may be a touch more complex with a few more people involved in it, but I think that'll be a good thing. I just want to, like I said, be sure that the taxpayers are taken care of with the Charlton Park millage, that's, got their focus, so.
Well, what's exciting about this too is we're seeing more and more people using like the McEwen Bridge Park. And there could be opportunities now for even some fundraising with that, from the standpoint that if they want to use the facility and we have to clean up afterwards, there's a fee then for having a wedding on the bridge. Or any of those kind of things that might be helpful for continuing the cash flow with it too, so.
One other thing, I got a couple more here. There's also, in Charlton Park, there's foundation money. And there's a foundation board, right?
Yes, sir.
Will that stay intact?
Yes, sir.
The commission won't have any control over that foundation board?
No entity other than the state of Michigan has any control over the foundation.
And gate fees, rental fees, the pavilion, stuff like that. You foresee that staying with Charlton Park, or is that going a big pot? I'm not talking millage now, I'm talking gate fees and stuff like that.
That will be, I really can't say for that, because that'll be up to the new board to make that decision.
And you see, that's things I'd like to know before I vote for a new board.
Well,
We're not operating individual parks, we're operating a park system. So it goes towards a common good. And 1 year needs are greater in one place, and next year their needs are greater someplace else. You want to have some flexibility and be able to address issues as they arise.
Okay.
When you look at Genesee County's park system, they have several different elements to their system. They have a historic village. It's called Crossroads Village. And then it has a little railroad. It's a scale railroad thing, Huckleberry Railroad. Those entities operate separately. They have a recreation place where you can go ride your quads and stuff. That operates separately. They have a county campground. That operates separately. So all of their little park they are self-funded. They, are self-sustaining. They work separately. Their money comes primarily from their visitors bureau, and then some millage money, I think. But for the most part, all of their little things operate on their own budgets, and they don't typically borrow too much from the others to make up for losses. So, and that's the key, is to create a system that does that, rather than, well, we'll just keep borrowing from this pot because we can, and it's not really how it works. That millage that we've got approved is for Charlton Park, and we need to keep funding the park side of it, the Parks and Rec side of this commission, because we don't have approval to spend millage money on anything else. So, any other questions?
So in the end, are you gonna be responsible for all the maintenance at all these other parks that we're taking on?
I would imagine, but, you know, ultimately, I think there are just some of the details have to be worked out once the commission's created on how they want to establish that setup moving forward.
That would probably change your job description then.
Potentially, yeah. It might put me out of a job. I don't know who.
I think
But-
when you
but-
look at the maintenance side of like McEwen Bridge Park, they are paying for a contractor to do that. So it wouldn't necessarily fall on Charlton Park staff. They still have the funds to pay that contractor. It's just, do you want a contract with Charlton Park to do it? Who knows?
Again, there continues to have to be a financial commitment by the County Board of Commissioners out of general fund dollars for the Parks Commission once it's established. Yes. But again, we're not reinventing the wheel. The cost code center process should flush that out pretty easily. If person X is working at McEwen Bridge Park, their time gets charged off to that, right? If they're working within the village, their time gets charged off to that. We do some of that already, even within just our small budget. And we're all familiar with that, working within that system, because that's what most agencies within government currently do. So it's certainly not a stretch for us to be able to do that in this case too.
Any other questions? All right. No.
Mr. Haney.
Mr. Snyder?
Snyder, sorry.
Mr. Snyder, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm not disagreeing with the combination of the other two, but that it worked for all the, where I've been, and so forth. But my question is combining the two a little bit too early because of the millage? What are the taxpayers, what's their attitude going to be that voted for the Charlton Park millage? Well, is this going over to the park? I didn't vote for that. Is there going to be a problem in that area? And yes, I understand there has to be two separate financial coming down between the parks and so forth. But, and I can see transferring funds back and forth. But what's the public going to say about this? Are they going to agree with like the equipment for Charlton Park? I don't want that going over there. I paid for that equipment for Charlton Park, not for the Parks and Rec. Especially when you got these agreements with the lawnmowers every couple of years, you know. But, and by combining, you can put a lot more hours on that piece of equipment. Is that piece of equipment going to affect the difference in the cost between new and trading in? These are the questions I've got. Is this something we should be looking down at maybe 2023 or something like that? Because it's really scheduled for 2024. As a taxpayer, I'm going to be looking at this too. You know, I agree with the combination of the two, but there is a commitment with that millage. Thank you.
I think the ballot language will say that it's for Charlton Park. It's for
It doesn't say
Charlton
that in
Park.
resolution.
Well, that would identify where the money would be going though, at that time, would be for that millage. And when they set up a board for this, and I think that that's where those things will be coming out, and there is no no way that we're trying to even give the impression that that millage would not be going to
Well,
other
the
places.
impression is combining the two together. That's the impression that that millage is going to the two entities.
The Parks and Rec Department has its own budget, and it is not dependent on the millage at all. And so going forward, for 2020, they do have their own budget, and it's not being absorbed by Charlton Park. It wouldn't be absorbed by the commission. It would be the Parks and Rec budget, separate from the millage budget. And so how that pans out over the next 3 years is going to be that commission's job to make sure that it is streamlined that way, because until that millage gets renewed, that millage is restricted on how it gets spent. And so we will still have to use general fund dollars to fund the Parks and Rec side. They will still have in their budget money to pay contractors to do their mowing and their upkeep, and that will still be in their budget. And I do not foresee that changing, even if it's conjoined in any way, shape, or form. Because there's just not room in Charlton Park's millage to absorb all of the money that we put to Parks and Rec.
Talking about public perception. It's not necessarily fact-based. I'm looking for it.
Fire drill.
Well, but most millage language includes what the money's gonna go for.
Exactly,
Like
and
with
that
the
millage is very specific.
Specific, like with the schools, they're gonna build the fine arts center and some of the things they were going to do. They were specific on what the money is gonna be spent on. And
And how many people are still upset that the high school didn't use the bond issue money to fix the roofs?
I don't.
Okay?
You have people in this county that have no clue that we don't have a conjoined department in the first place. So, any other discussion? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 19-23, a resolution creating the Parks and Recreation Commission in accordance with Public Act 261 of 1965. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
It is 4-2. I vote aye for approval. We'll see this again next week. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We're gonna see it again next week.
Alrighty. Next on our agenda, do we need to take a break? Okay. Next on our agenda is the last on the desk, maybe? Alrighty. It is the chair would recommend a motion to recommend to the, or actually I'm making a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners ratification of the chairperson's reappointment of Mr. Kim Dufresne and Mr. Chris Lappins to the Berry County Officers Compensation Commission for a 4-year term that begins on 10/1/19 and expire on 9/30/23, and the appointment of Karen Rupel to serve on the Berry County Officers Compensation Commission for the remainder of a term that began on 6/6/17 and expires on 9/30 of 2020.
I would move.
Okay. So I got Connor and Parker. Discussion. So this is the Compensation Study Commission that Commissioner Geiger originally appointed, is it 2 years ago? We had one position that the member was ineligible to serve or chose not to serve. And we searched high and low for someone who was qualified to be on to fill that spot. And there's some restrictions. You can't be related to somebody who works for a school. You can't be related to somebody who works as a commissioner or works for the county. I mean, you're pretty limited.
Some restrictions, huh?
Yeah. So, given the fact that we have a ton of people that are involved in our communities and we run into them at township meetings and school board meetings and it's really hard to focus this search. Sorry, we're getting out of third hour. So in the process of all of the interviews that we've done this fall for our boards, we've asked several of them, if we don't appoint you to this board, would you be interested in being appointed to a different board? And that's where Karen Ruppel comes in. She's not on any other board. She's a retired school teacher. So she understands, you know, public personnel and their pay structures and stuff maybe a little better than, you know, somebody who just works at McDonald's. Not saying that that's a bad thing. But we also talked to Mr. Dufresne and Mr. Lappins, and they were both very amicable about being reappointed to this committee. And so it is my recommendation that we make these appointments, and I think you guys just need to ratify, so.
Nothing against the appointments, but can we do the 2 renewals and fill in the thing all in one motion?
I think so.
Okay.
And Karen Ruppel, what did she apply
interviewed for the
Refresh my
Public
memory.
Health or Department of Mental Health
Okay.
Board. And she didn't get appointed. I can't remember who we appointed instead of her, but there were 3 for that position.
She had a very good resume.
He had a good sense of humor. I remember
She did.
that.
So I talked to her after the meeting, as, you know, like Commissioner Geiger had spoke to somebody else, and we've all kind of picked that one person that said, hey, would you be interested in serving as something else? We've got openings here, there, and everywhere. And I specifically asked her about this commission. She's been in the county, I think, 15 years, and this was her first attempt when we interviewed her for community mental health to be part of a board. And so I knew she wouldn't be conflicted with serving on another one of our boards. And she called me late on Friday night. That's why she was in addition to this this request form late, and said she would love to be on the board. So I just wanted to take that opportunity to bring her back in front of us. We've already interviewed her for a different board, so we're more familiar with her. She's not, you know, my imaginary friend from someplace else in the county. Any other discussion?
Do we even have to approve it?
You know, Ben made the appointments before, and I think it was just, you have to confirm, I think.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners ratification of the chairperson's reappointment of Kim Dufresne and Mr. Chris Lappins to the Berry County Officers Compensation Commission for a 4-year term that began on 10/1/19 and expire on 9/30/23, and the appointment of Karen Ruppel to serve on the Berry County Officers Compensation Commission for the remainder of a term that began on 6/6/17 and expires on 9/30/2020. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. The item is approved. Thank you very much. Limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the committee may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Good morning.
Morning.
It's still morning?
Just barely. Sharon Zabrowski, Carlton Township. I also happen to pay taxes. The issue over the park boards has been an issue for quite a while. I have discussed this with some of the commissioners. I was assured, we would not do this unless we include the public. We would let the public have their say. Did I miss that? Did I not get informed as to when that was going to happen? If you go back through the newspapers, which I have done, when you had a commission, it was an issue. There were all kinds of problems. There was all kinds of stuff in the paper that you could read. One of the issues was too many county officials in charge. They wanted more at-large citizens. But now we're going to go back to that, And of course, I do have to say, you save me from thinking of what my opinion would be because you just give it to us. A lot of taxpayers would like to say something. They may want to say, this is great. We like this idea. This was a problem. Could that problem be solved when you put them together this time? What are the plans? What you don't have plans. What is this going to benefit? It's going to bring grants. And what else? What does the future look like? What is the future of the parks? I would like to know some of that. And then I would like to have a say in, yes, this is a great idea, or maybe not. When the boards were separated, the rest of the state still did a park system. The people of Berry County did not want that. Has that opinion changed? Have they had a chance to hear what has happened? What was the result of doing that? Was it a good result, a bad result? We accomplished those results. Here's why. People haven't heard anything. It's like today, oh, next week we're going to vote on it. There it is, done deal. You don't like it, too bad, suck it up. I still think we need more public information and let them voice their opinion. This county remembers things from 70 years ago. When it comes time for a millage, that's how they got accomplished getting 2 boards. They voted down the millage until it was either close the park or do what the taxpayers wanted. I don't want to see that happen again. Thank you.
Any other limited public comment this morning?
For the record, my name is Jack Miner. You folks vote in putting those combined boards together, you're going to make a very serious mistake. Have any of you talked to anyone at the foundation? Have any of you talked to the people that 10 or 12 years ago put together the first millage that we got passed? Has anyone talked to the people that put the second millage that got passed? You folks, this is a wonderful idea. Let people come and tell you what they think. This might be a wonderful idea, but the way you designed it today, there isn't a prayer in this world that you won't be funding in 2024 Charlton Park out of general funds. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
I've got one last thing here.
I'd like to remind everybody about the, oh, you got more public comment?
Okay, I'll wait.
Daryl Cheeseman. I've been a volunteer at Charlton Park since 2006. Mostly with the Gas and Steam Club, but I've also been on the park board for, I don't know, about 10 years. As has been mentioned already, I want to reiterate to you guys, you know, there's obvious reasons for combining, but it seems to me that it's getting fast-tracked. You know, from the time I had access to this resolution to the time that you guys vote it through, if you do next week, I mean, the Charlton Park Board isn't even going to know about it. You're doing it in such a brief timeline that, as others have said, nobody else other than the folks in this room know anything about this. I'm not saying what is about to happen is a terrible thing, but it's a little troublesome that it's happening so quick. I mean, yeah, it has been, this combining them back together has been talked about almost since the time that they were separated. But the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a lot of chatter about putting them back together. Now, the grant part of it, yeah, that is what it is. But some of the other aspects are a little concerning. As Mr. Smelker said, you know, there's infrastructure things that we don't have the answers to. And what does it hurt to come up with some of those answers before we vote this in? As a board member at the park, I'm a little nervous about all the what-ifs that you're putting on the board, as opposed to having some of them worked out ahead of time. We meet, say this goes into effect January 1st. We have our first meeting in January. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of what-ifs. What are we going to do? What does the county commissioners want us to do? I think there's a little bit more homework needs to be done on this before it's a done deal. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other comments this morning?
I'd like to remind everybody about the ribbon cutting at the transit tomorrow. The renovation and construction is all done, and they're going to have a ribbon cutting at 2 o'clock with cider and donuts, and you're all welcome.
Thank you, sir. Next week, I will, the history teacher in me, will be bringing 2 students with me from my government class. It is part of their curriculum to visit local government, and I will be bringing 2 students each of the next few meetings through January till the end of the semester. So they will occupy a chair and behave themselves appropriately, or they'll be in big trouble when we get back to school. But we've got permission slips from all of their parents so that they can attend just to see how a government meeting works. By the time they get out of class, they can't stream our meetings because they're on to algebra and biology and other things. So we're just going to take a day where they can come and see it firsthand. So knowing that today was...
Want us on our best behavior too, then.
No, well, I want them on their best behavior. Knowing that this was going to be a rather long meeting, we opted not to bring 2 today, but we'll come next week and it probably won't be so long. So look forward to seeing them here. Is there any other business to come before the committee? Hearing none, there being no further business, and without objection, the committee will stand adjourned.